So that is episode 2 of the Tamiya Frog build. Really looking forward to getting this on. Hi guys, Brett here from Hearns Hobbies, and welcome back to part 2 of the Tamiya Frog build. And you can see, based on last time, that we actually got quite a bit done. The chassis is a brilliant design. We've got the front suspension on, and we've got the steering blocks. So yeah, still a long way to go. It's definitely not close to complete, but hopefully by the end of this episode, it actually starts to look like somewhat of the buggy that it's going to be. So let's jump right in. Okay, step 6. Okay, so I'm going to actually attach the front bumper bar, which is really cool, which is iconic with the Tamiya Frog, this big nylon piece bumper bar. And we've got even this bit of fiberglass here. This would have been pretty special back in the time. All right, so let's get the build underway with a couple of screws. So I'll put it over my icon here. I need 2 of these, which is there. We've got a couple of these washers. Is that the one? 2 washers. That can actually be the tricky part of building a kit, is getting your parts all organised. So these parts trays with all the compartments make it a little bit easier to actually dig through and sort and see what we're actually working with. This one here, and the body post itself is that one. Okay, so let's have, oh, this, I forgot the pivot pin here for the radius arm. That's a black part. There's one. And there's 2. Okay, so let's get our frog build underway. Bring the chassis over. Going to offer up the middle screw first. We'll come through from underneath. Now the beauty about these Tamiya kits is they are 90% all self-tapping screws, which makes it quite easy for them to produce and quite easy to assemble. The NINESTEPS screwdriver here does an amazing job of biting in to the parts on hand, making the screws, well, not damaging the screws in the assembly is one part, and the next part is yeah, looking good while you're doing it, and quite easy to use without having to exert massive amounts of pressure and force onto them. Now you can be sure that this bumper bar is going to get a workout. Okay, so I like to offer the parts up and realistically not tighten them up until like the modular assembly like this is all together and secure, in case I have to make any amendments, straighten anything up. So the radius arm rod goes into the bumper bar mount too. You can see why these cars are so robust. You know, there's not a lot of weight to them. And because it's self-tapping screws as well, it's also holds, like, it's quite tight, so it works like a thread lock, I suppose, if you will. And so the car in fact won't rattle itself apart. Not that you can't check it after every run or in between runs when you're doing cleaning of it, but generally speaking, as long as the thread itself isn't damaged, been over tightened mainly, then they shouldn't rattle themselves apart. A little bit to go until the flat face is there, like so. There we go, and you can see how that really strengthens up this front assembly here. And that's the radius arms on and the bumper bar. So now that this part's on, we can go ahead and tighten it up. Let's start from the middle screw, go to the outside one, and then the last one. It's starting to look like a buggy already. Makes a great handle as well. Okay, then we've got to put our body post in, which is where the body is going to sit on, and the body clip itself will go through. You can use our Tamiya wrench here for this one. You get it in nice and straight, and it's saying to do it up fully tight until the shoulder touches the bumper bar mount. I'm not sure if you can see that here. I can bring it up closer. So just for where the shoulder is. I'll go ahead and tighten that up. Quite a tight thread, this one. That's exactly why they won't rattle loose. There we go. Lovely. Body post, bumper bar on. I'll put that to the side for a second. That is step 6. Step 7, haha, gears. Now, we'll see here that the gearbox in the Frog is actually supported by bearings on the Frog. So we'll talk about that later on, because I am actually going to replace the nylon bushes in the kit with the bearing kit that I've got here. We'll talk about that when it happens. But for now, just size up this. You can see how handy this scale is. It's handy at every step to make sure that you are using the right step along the way. Got our clip. We've got our gear, we've got our 2 bearings. Now, very cleverly, Tamiya give you 3 options of gearing. So they've included the 50 tooth, which will marry to the 18 tooth pinion. They've given us the, is it marked at all? It's not marked, I'll have to count them. They've given us the 49 tooth, which is gonna, this one here, which is gonna go for the 16 tooth pinion. And then we've got the 52 tooth, the 49, which will go with the 19, and the 52, which will go to the 16. So we've got 3 sizes here and 3 sizes of pinion gears. Now the reason that they do that is because the motor itself doesn't move. So the motor sits in one location and we change the gears around it to give us different gear ratio. Now what the gear ratio is, or the gear reduction, it slows down the motor shaft speed and increases the torque, if you will. So 7.3 to 1, that means that the motor is going to spin over 3.7 times to every 1 rotation of the outside axles, the out drives of the gearbox. So we've got tuning options here from 6.7 to 1, which is high speed and slower acceleration, all the way up to 8.5 turns to 1. So yeah, so let's have a look. Now the pinion gears aren't marked, but there's 3 sizes. So we've got a 16, we've got a 18, and 19 is hard to see. We've got a 19, and we have in fact got the 18. So you can see here how these gear sets are in fact very different, but the difference between the motor and the center part of the transmission here will all be the same. And that's what gives us a gear mesh. Gives us a nice purchase on the gears without having too much that will strip and rub the gears, and not too close that it's tight and binding. So that's what we call gear mesh. So of course, being the race car that it is, we're going to go with the high speed gear set, which is going to be the 6.7 to 1. So I'm going to put these gears away so I don't confuse them again, because this Frog is going to make it on racetrack. So put this one through here, and then we can put our center gear through, and then we'll put our clip. Now this part is going to be a little bit tricky because we don't want this clip to fly across the room, and it has to fit into the groove. So it's not super high tensile spring steel, but still will launch itself across. I've got my handy little 9-steps Gizmo tool here, and you can hear it just click in to the shaft, the gear on the motor. There we go, click, click. That is in. I'll do a final little check where I'll actually move the clip. That ensures that it is located like so. That is not going anywhere. And that is really cool. Alloy machine. So we've got a couple of bearings. 1, 2, there we go. There is the spur gear and the idler gear for the transmission. Okay, whoops. Next part of the assembly. We'll put this one aside. That's the matching pinion gear. Next part of the assembly is the diff. Okay, so this is the diff gear here, and these are the bevel gears. So I'm going to go ahead and get the parts ready for this step, step number 8. So we've got 3 diff gears. 1, 2, 3. We've got our gearbox housing, the right side. We have got a bearing, 2 bearings, the classic 11x5 Tamiya bearing. We've got gears, and of course we've got the spacer for the transmission. Where is the spacer for the transmission? Can be this one here. Need 2 of these ones, and I've actually got a machine screw, 2 of them, 3x8mm machine thread, and that will be into metal parts. That one looks a touch too long. These ones right here. That is the one, BC one's 3x8mm. Okay, so put the bevels into the diff, and I am going to use grease on this. Like so, and I've got my grease right here. It's very important to keep these gears lubricated to make sure that they last a long time and they're nice and smooth. So I'll go ahead here and I'll just put that on. Like so. This one too. It's actually really sticky, which is good. That's what you want in the grease, so it doesn't in fact just fly off and stays where it's supposed to, and keep these gears lubricated and smooth. Okay, that is enough there. Oh, we need the parts off the B tree. B2. Get out my handy 9-steps nippers for this one. This is the very high nylon, almost like Teflon, super rigid, resilient plastic for this. Get that burr off, nice and smooth. This one too. Beautiful. Do a good job, those little nippers. Okay, press the bearing into here. a little nipper for this part. That is the gearbox bushing. There we go. Make sure there's no burr on there. Smooth to the touch. This one's got a little burr. Cut that off. Okay. So, I've got my right gearbox. Put it together as described. Teflon in there. Put a little bit of grease on this gear too. Doesn't need to be swimming in it. And what the grease does is it actually helps hold it together. Oh, I need the gearbox case. Here we have, I didn't see that in the picture. The iconic stacked gearbox of the Frog. It's a very iconic part of the car, this gearbox, and unique to these chassis. And they used it on lots of other chassis as well. So I'll go ahead, put these ones in. Like so, and put some screws through to help hold it all together. Some of these steps you need 3 hands, so it's important just to take your time, make sure you're working over a nice surface. Like so. I won't tighten that up now, but get it nice and started and make sure that everything's going to line up. There we go, that is half the gearbox for the Frog assembled. Looking good. Okay, now we can go through to the other part of the gearbox. So, again with the screws. So, I need 3 of these long screws, 25mm. Yes. 3x8 again. Three by 8, and shaft MR18 times 1. Where is the gearbox shaft? These are the dowels for the transmission. Here is transmission shaft. Okay, that is the one. Okay, so now we can go ahead and start to assemble this gearbox. I'm going to put a little bit of gear on here. A little bit of grease on this gear here. Keep it all nice and quiet and smooth running. Like so. And put this in all nice and lined up. Like so. go ahead and I'll put the other diff gear in. A little bit more grease. Like so. Then I can go and put my dowels in. 1, 2, 3. And then what these dowels do is allow the gearbox housings to be firmly screwed together without it crushing the plastic inner, the middle part here. So again, a beautiful design. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's in. Got the shaft in. I need the bearing retainer and the bearing for here. Like so. And it's a matter of offering it all up and ensuring that it does in fact come together nicely. Like so. Click. There we go. That is great news. Then we can go ahead and put in some of our casing screws. Put these through first, and we'll ensure I get 3 in there at least. That ensures that that is all lined up. Okay, now we'll put some nuts. Nylock nuts for this one. Save it rattling loose. Last one. Okay, go ahead and grab my 5.5mm box wrench for this one. We can start to tighten these screws up a little. Still not going to tighten them all the way because I want to make sure that everything's nice and smooth before I really start tightening the gearbox screws up. In case something might not be aligned or out of place and it will start to distort or crack the housing. So we'll get it to a point where it's flush, but not necessarily too tight. So I can still spin the nut with the box wrench and it will spin through the housing with little resistance. That way we know that we're not going to damage or bend anything. And if something's not aligned, then we can just simply disassemble it and have another go. Back that up a little bit. There we go. And that is essentially the transmission and the differential for the Frog assembled. That is super cool. So that's going to sit in there. The motor's going to mount here with the pinion on, and yeah, that's what's going to move it. Okay, so then I can go ahead and put these screws in. The last 2 casing screws. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is dummy up the out drives to the diff to ensure that the gears are all aligned, so I can in fact tighten up the, oh, and the diff is silky smooth. So the diff's all aligned and meshed. Nice little bit of free play in there. And the gears are turning over really smooth. So that tells me that everything is in fact lined up and ready for me to tighten up. Lovely. Okay. So I'll tighten the transmission in the crossways to ensure that it's pulled down nice and even. And I'll be using the torque from the box driver, the nut side, to feel how tight it is. And these ones, they just screw in. Quick turn, lovely. Feels even better now that it's all tightened up. It's turning over nice and smooth. Diff action, good. Okay, these can come out. That has been checked. Lovely, so that's the transmission done. Now the next step looks like we're offering it up to the chassis itself. This is where the buggy really going to start to take shape. Okay, so again, next step, I'll get some screws, 30mm silver screws. I've got 2 of those. We've got 2 3x10s. Yeah. Oops. 3x10s, and I've got a rear body mount ×2. Rear body mount. 1, 2. Perfect. So now we're up to step 10. Okay, so let's have a look how it goes in. So we've got our chassis here, our chassis assembly. I'm going to offer the gearbox up and see how it's going to go. Ah, so that was pretty clever of Tamiya. So what they've done is they put these screws in just to safeguard that you've assembled it all together. That's a pretty cool feature. Take these ones out for the moment. Again, that comes to making sure that it's all tight and even upon assembly. They really do build fantastic Tamiya. May not be the highest tank, fastest racing car out there, but it is really good fun to build. The assembly is second to none, even for a fairly basic kit that is the Tamiya Frog. Okay, so offer the transmission up. These top ones now are the 30mm screws, like so. Get that located. Where's my screwdriver? Here it is. Again, I'm going to put all these in to just one at a time. I'm not going to do them all up tight now. We'll get it in, located and lined up before I go applying real torque to it. Here we go. That's the top ones in. Then the lower ones, the 10mm. These ones down here. And leaving it loose gives me that wiggle room to locate it and line it up. Like so. Now the gearbox is in, I can slowly start tightening it up. There we go. Transmission is in. Still doesn't look so much like a buggy yet, but we have made leaps and bounds today. Let's go ahead and put the body posts in. Okay, so these go up here. Iconic side mount body posts on this car. Got my 7mm Tamiya wrench here. There we go, get that nice and level. And this one is going to be much the same too. Screw it all the way in, then out to get the body clips horizontal, like so. There we go. Okay. Now we move our way on, step 11, to the drive shafts. And these are iconic, and they have in fact been updated on the re-release models. So they used to be like a hexagonal shaped sort of drive shaft where they would locate, whereas now it's the traditional two-pin dog bone assembly, commonly referred to as a dog bone. So should prove to be more reliable, probably smoother, and yeah, definitely a lot more robust. Okay, so I need drive shaft boots. Here we have the drive shaft boots. Now they come all as one piece. So, and it shows me here exactly how to cut it off. So I've got to cut off this piece here. Okay. I'll just go grab some scissors. Bear with me. Hey guys, welcome back. Okay, so well, now what we got to was the drive shaft boot. Now this is a little bit tricky because it all comes in one assembly, and you've only sort of got one chance at it. So you want to make sure that you cut it in the right spot, because yeah, there's no gluing it back together. That said, with these new two-pin dog bones, it shouldn't be quite as critical as getting dirt and stuff in there. I mean, none of our other race cars sort of use drive shaft boots in this day and age, but I suppose it goes back to that vintage feel and was part of the Frog. So let's go ahead and cut the drive shaft boot. Okay, I'm just going to lay it over here, see exactly where it comes from. Okay, so we'll start from this end and here. Like so. Then I'll keep it laying that way. Cut this bit off. There we go, that's our first cut. Our first two cuts. Now these ones get cut here. And that's the last part left. Yeah, this one here, like so. There we go. So let's have a look what we're left over with. Two drive shaft boots. Put it over here. Yep. Perfect. That's one. This one. Looking good. Okay, joint boot. Now we can put our dog bone assembly through the drive shaft boot, and it recommends to put a little bit of lubricant over it, and that will help it go through the boot as well, so I'm pretty happy about that. like so. Just going to sort of try and wind it in. Last thing I want to do is put a hole or tear it when it's brand new. Yeah, got past the narrow bit. Beautiful. And that's in there like that. You can see how well covered and protected it is. Last one. Put a bit of grease. Put a bit of grease just on one end at this stage, because I tend to find otherwise you just get grease everywhere. So put it on the leading one, and that helps lubricate it and push it through without tearing the drive shaft. A little bit of patience. Like so. Here we go. Just sort of winding it and pushing it gently. There we go. Dog bone done. That is step 11 done. Let's have a look what's over here. Now if I could get the rear arms on, mounted to the gearbox this episode, that'd be really cool. So let's go forward and see what parts we need for step 12. Okay, so we've got our rear trailing arms. This one here, snip. And you can see why they affectionately called it the Frog. You know, it's really got that, the trailing arm suspension really gave it that squatted stance. Got our trailing arms, check for any burrs. Might just get the hobby knife out for this one. Like so. Looking very good. Very good. Good nippers, these 9-step ones. Very good. Okay, so we've got our drive shafts. Now this is where I'm going to talk to you. This is where it's asking for plastic bearings. So I'm going to put the instruction down for a second and talk to you about the plastic or nylon bearings. So these ones right here, you can see that they are in fact, they're super hard Teflon or nylon construction, and they will actually be quite resistance free. They're really good, they won't need any maintenance, and they're quite tough. They do however wear, and as they wear you're going to get a load of slop across your axles, and that's going to cause a lot more wear on your drive shaft pins and potentially your diffs and your arms. So as a performance upgrade, I highly recommend putting ball bearings. Now here at Hearns we offer ball bearing kits, and this is the one for the Tamiya Frog. It's got everything I need to make sure that this car is fully ball raced. So the only 4 bearings that I'll be using in this kit is indeed for the rear axles. There will be 2, I think, looking at the instructions. So I'll be using 8 bearings. I'll be using 4 for the rear axles and it'll be 4 for the front wheels. The rest of the gearbox was supported by bearings. So just count these out. And these are the very traditional 11x5 bearings, and they're used across a lot of kits. So here we have 2, 4, 6, 8 bearings, and that's going to have us covered. So I'll put them in the tray and I'll talk to you a little bit about our Hearns racing bearings. So these here, they're metal shield bearings, really low resistance, and that will last for an awfully long time. This will give years of operation, and if they do get dirty or sand whatnot in them, they are fully cleanable. You can just clean them, re-oil them and go again. So really cool. They will make the Frog faster and last longer, which is great news. So I'm going to use this on the initial build, so I'm not actually going to use these nylon spacers that we said. I'll put those to the side and use our Hearns Racing ball bearing kit. Okay, so back on with the build. Just getting the parts. So I need 4 bearings on this step. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got our larger axle here. Yes. We've got 2 of those. We certainly have. We've got our diff outdrive. Yes. And our other diff outdrive. Yes. Fantastic. The other thing is O-rings. They use O-rings on these to take up some of the float in the dog bone, so that stops it from actually rattling. So that is a really cool feature that they've included. Let's go ahead and get one of the arms offered up. We'll start with the right arm. So we've got start with our right arm. So we've got one here. Right, like so. Just size it up. That's the one. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll press the bearing in. 1, 2, like so. Go ahead, put the axle through and secure it all with a body clip. To me, I love doing this. Secure it with the body clip. Make sure that the axle can't fall back out and the bearings can't escape. Then we've got 1 O-ring in the axle, like so. We've got our dog bone. That can go either way. So I'll use this side here. I'll apply a little bit more grease to make sure that the metal to metal joints are looked after. Oops, put my O-ring back in. There we go. I've got my dog bone in, my arm on. 2 more O-rings in this assembly. And this is what I mean when I say sometimes you almost need 3 hands to do some of these steps. It's quite a lot of parts going on here. Very sticky, this grease. A little bit of grease on the dog bone pins. Like so. Get that located. Like so. So there we have our right rear arm assembly with the drive shaft, dog bone and diff outdrive assembled. So I'm just going to sit that to a side gently if I can. Try not to touch it, otherwise it'll fall apart, and then we'll start on our left arm. So again, bearing in, inner bearing in, axle through, body clip on, we've got 1 O-ring here, grease up the dog bone, like so. I'll go ahead and locate the dog bone. Of course the O-ring fell out, make sure that that's back in. Get that located. Again, Gizmo tool comes to the rescue. Get that O-ring sitting nice and flush. Otherwise the dog bone might be bound up a little bit. Like so. Drive shaft boot on. There we go. And while I got it pushed to the table, I'll assemble a little bit of grease. Like so. There we go. Now we've got the 2 O-rings on this side. like so. Put that together. Yeah, there you go. That is fantastic. So that is our left and right arm assemblies. Now what I have to do is offer that up to the gearbox and let's try and get it together. So the parts for that are metal bracket here, metal screw there, we have the nice shiny side out, like so, and 4 screws, 3x10 tapping screws, 1, 2, 3, 4. That is them. Okay, now it's asking in fact for a little bit of grease on these assemblies. Put a tiny bit there and put a tiny bit here, and I'll go ahead and I'll put a tiny bit on here, and last but not least, this little part here. That'll ensure that it goes together as nice as it can. I should actually put some on this out drives as well before that goes into the diff assembly, because this poor little diff's going to be working quite hard, I think, out on the track. Like so. It's actually a really good quality grease that they use in these kits. I'll go ahead and offer that up. Okay, I need that spline to take. Got my hands full. Okay, let's get that spline to take. Get that arm lined up. Like so. Oops, the spline's come out again. There we go, that's got it. The first side should be the trickiest side, now that the diff's lined back up in the casing. Get these arm mount in, and the car will essentially have 4 axles on it. This buggy will really start to take shape. So you can see here that these plastics are pretty tough, which is really good. Makes these screws a little bit sort of tight to put in, but it ensures that they're strong and that they won't fall out. Again, I'm not doing everything up really tight at this point until I make sure that it's all lined up and in situ. And there we have our suspension movement, like so. Not much by today's standards, but still plenty for the buggy to get around the track. All right, so let's go ahead with the other side. I'm going to go ahead and grease this out drive up. This one here's got the pin that runs all the way through the diff, so ensure that that spline's got plenty on it. like so. Offer this up, should be straighter now, like so. Yep, it's going straight in like I was hoping. A little bit easier when it's all lined up. 2 more screws, and that is the rear axle on. So this episode we've done quite a lot. We've built the diff, assembled the gearbox, attached the gearbox to the car, we've assembled the axles and put on the rear suspension. And you can see it hasn't really taken all that long, so it's not the most complicated build, but it's been a very good build. It's gone together well. Once you get everything lined up, it just basically puts itself together. Like so. And there we have it. There we have our suspension. We've got our axles on. We've got our front and rear suspension. The front suspension is finished in its entirety with the springs in there already, the inboard springs. The rear one's still going to have a damper unit put on across here to give it a really good, nice feel. Yeah, so we can spin it over. And the diff that's in there will actually give it, so what the differential does is let one rear wheel spin at a different speed to the other one, hence the name, it's called a differential. You can see there, it does in fact. You can hear the grease, it's really quite smooth, and that's only going to get better as it runs in and as it comes together. So really looking forward to getting this on. So that is episode 2 of the Tamiya Frog build. Stay tuned for more and watch how it comes together. I'm Brett, thanks for watching.